Hi, I'm Alex Parcell.
I'm Andrew Parcell.
I'm Danielle Gordon.
I'm Bree Turner.
And I'm Will Tabor.
And through extensive research, we have come to the conclusion that the death penalty is a justifiable punishment. Looking at the death penalty from the perspective of family members who have suffered the loss of a loved one, the death penalty is a justifiable punishment because it is the only way that any sense of closure can be reached. According to Sandra Place, daughter of Mildred Place, a victim of murder, if the killer were given life without parole, and I mean a true life sentence, I would not be here. I would not be forced to discuss the killer and the verdict in the ways in which my life has been affected. Each court date, each appeal, each write-up in the newspaper, revisiting and revisiting the pain, each event keeping me that much further from the curative process that I and my family so greatly deserve. Now, one might argue and say that when Sandra Place says this, that it's a false statement because since that person is never going to be back with them, that no closure can be reached. But according to Sandra Place, as long as they keep revisiting the pain through the court dates, that's how the closure can't be reached. And if the execution of her mother's killer were to take place, the curative process would take place. Now to Andrew Purcell.
According to a study done by Mulhayson in 2014, each execution deters an average of 18 murders. Now that's saving 18 lives per every successful use of the death penalty. And that's why we believe it is justified through a futurist lens and its deterrence on future crime. And when I say crime, I mean murders. Now some might say that Americans have a problem with the morality of the death penalty, but that's just simply not true. In May, a poll was done that said 61% of Americans supported the death penalty and only 30% did not. So that puts it at a 2-to-1 ratio. It also is makes an example of those who commit a crime, like murder, to what can happen, and deters them because they value their own lives over the lives of someone else. And now to Danielle Gordon.
For those that practice religion, it can be said that religion, they base their entire lives off of their religion and their teachings. Now, contrary to popular belief, many Christians say that the death penalty is not a good thing and is actually prohibited by the Bible. And the Bible is one of the most widely distributed and printed books in the world, translated into thousands of languages and has millions of followers. And while one of the 10 commandments, thou shalt not kill, from Exodus 20:13, says thou shalt not kill, and Exodus 21:24 clearly states an eye for an eye, tooth for tooth, hand for hand, foot for foot. This quote clearly states that while murder is not okay for innocent people, the death penalty is a justifiable punishment for those that commit murder, theft, and adultery. Similar to this, in Quran 6:51 says, do not kill the soul which Allah has forbidden except for the requirements of justice. This he has enjoyed with you, and that you may understand. And similar to this quote here, it also points out that while the murder of innocent people is not okay, the use of death as a punishment for heinous crimes is. And now to Bree Turner.
Philosophically, the death penalty has been backed by an innumerable amount of philosophers in our history. Aristotle once said, justice is to give every man his own. The own that he's referring to is an equal punishment for the crime committed by a criminal. Aristotle is well known for his profound and thoughtful ideas in the classical Greek era, so this idea should be no different and should be just as valued. In plain English, he's saying that there should always be some kind of reciprocated action for someone that commits a crime. Considering that this ideology is still agreed with today, shows the death penalty's legitimacy and longevity. Now, Mahatma Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye makes the whole world blind. And this is often cited by those that are against the death penalty. Unfortunately, this doesn't fully apply to the situation at hand. The death penalty isn't an erratic, belligerent response to crime and the criminals that commit them. It is instead a justification and peace of mind for those affected after their loved ones are taken away. The death penalty is not about revenge, seeing as revenge is built upon rage and impulsion. Those that decide whether or not the death penalty is even appropriate are outside parties without bias or link to the case. So to generalize the death penalty as an act of revenge is incorrect. And also, philosopher Montaigne said, one of the uses of our system of justice is to warn others. We are reforming not the hanged individual, but everyone else. Essentially, he's saying that the death penalty has been a great deterrent since before, during, and after the greatest global stirs and changes in life and philosophy. It would be unwise, to say the least, to negate the rich history behind the death penalty and all it's done for our country's upbringings. And now to Will Tabor.
As my partner Bree just mentioned, there is a rich history of the death penalty. Starting in the ancient world, specifically Babylon and Rome, the Roman law of the 12 tablets and the Code of Hammurabi set a precedent for the death penalty with their inclusion in their law codes. Later on, in colonial America, the death penalty was also present, specifically in the Duke Laws of New York and the Capital Laws of New England and the Massachusetts Bay Company. The first execution in America was George Kendall in 1608, suspected of betraying the British. Together, all these examples set a precedent for the death penalty. This precedent is why we should keep it. It is a part of our history, not only as Americans, but also as members of the Western tradition and the human race. There is not only a historical precedent, but a legal one. In the halls of the Supreme Court, 2 instrumental cases have seen the 9 judges. First off, in 1972, was Furman v. Georgia. Furman ruled that jury discretion could lead to arbitrary sentencing, which invalidated the death penalty. However, 4 years later, Gregg v. Georgia took away these jury discretionary measures and made the death penalty, once again, valid. This sets a legal precedent for the death penalty and invalidates any claims that there is no legal basis based on our constitutional rights. Speaking of the Constitution, many claim that lethal injection violates our 8th Amendment rights, saying that it's cruel and unusual punishment. However, we would argue that the death penalty has made advances to changing social standards. In the ancient world, above, this is a quote for a method of punishment for the crime parricide. The condemned was submerged in water in a sack, which also contained a dog, a rooster, a viper, and an ape. No one can argue that this punishment is any more humane than the lethal injection. Lethal injection is more humane by far. The changing social standards have been met by the death penalty. As you can see, the death penalty is valid from a futuristic lens, from the lens of a victim's family, from a religious lens, and a philosophical lens as well. There is no reason to eliminate the death penalty. Thank you.